Hi, everyone. This is Heather with the Old Schoolhouse, and today I will be interviewing Scott Clifton of Homeschool Partners. If you are tuning in live, make sure that you comment, like, share. If you know anybody that has high schoolers in their home and they're homeschooling, make sure you let them know to pop on right now so they can ask questions and find out more information about Homeschool Partners and what they have to offer. Scott has been a full-time high school homeschool co-op instructor of in-person and online classes since 2002. And the students in his classes are able to earn dual enrollment college credits. I know a lot of you are interested in how this works, so I cannot wait to hear about this. He and his wife, Julie, have homeschooled their children from the beginning. They have 5 graduates and 2 teenagers. He is the author of American Government for Christian Homeschoolers, Economics for Christian Homeschoolers, and Civics for Christian Homeschoolers. He has authored 6 sets of homeschool literature for middle school and high school age students. He and his family live in Western North Carolina, and I'm so excited that you are here. Scott, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I am really excited to hear about your company, Homeschool Partners. Can you just start by telling us what Homeschool Partners is all about?
Yeah, it's just an in-person class, a high school co-op. And I just recently started doing online classes as well. And I've got kids, or I had kids last year from everywhere from Las Vegas to Orlando, Florida, and been doing it since 2002. I actually did 1 year at a public high school 23 years ago. So that was interesting. I thought I was going to teach, but I was basically a zookeeper. So that was my job, really. But I lasted 1 year. Then I did 1 year at a Christian school. Then I had a friend of mine, like a friend of a friend. She was doing a 5th through 8th grade homeschool co-op in Orlando, Florida. And she said, hey, need somewhere to send these kids. Can you come up with a curriculum? I was like, sure, you know. Inside I was going, no. But I stayed a couple of weeks ahead for about 4 years and then put it all together and finally started writing my own stuff because I needed something that kind of fit the co-op better and the Christian worldview better. So here we are.
Well, I'm really excited to hear about the courses that you have to offer. But before we get into that, for those watching who might not be familiar with what dual enrollment is, can you explain exactly what that is and how it works with homeschoolers?
Yeah, it's basically you earn college credits in high school by taking classes. So you can apply those to a college degree if you want to. So that's the dual part. And I have seen, I mean, there's a lot of different options that kids have these days, but most of them, I would say, since at least a lot of homeschoolers are Christian, I would say that a lot of those options, at least for me and a lot of people I know, would be probably out of bounds just because of the content. I mean, that's why we do it is, the content. So college credits doesn't undo all of our, convictions about that. So, yeah.
I am so glad you touched on that because that is very important for homeschool families. They're not ready to send their children as sheep among wolves, to the college atmosphere. They might not ever want to, but they want them to have that the education. And I do have an experience personally with trying dual enrollment and being very disappointed with the content because it did not line up with my worldview.
So, just curious what happened in that case.
What's that?
What happened in that case you were talking about?
So it was a Christian school. All
right.
And the content ended up, going against our worldview. So we pulled him out. He was able to get some classes, and for dual enrollment, like you said, you're getting the credits. So he still has those credits that he can use to get his associate's degree eventually. He's only 16.
Right.
But, just parents like me, so many parents have come to me and asked me, where can I find Christian dual enrollment classes? I mean, that is what parents are looking for. So can you, and this is really exciting to me, because of my personal experience and those that I've talked to with high schoolers that want to give their children that education. Explain your courses. What does it involve and how do they work?
Sure. Well, I'm like you. I've been doing these classes since 2002, and I have seen a kind of a downward trend among Christian homeschooling in high school, especially where people get sucked into, free dual enrollment, which means basically it's plundered from other taxpayers. And the last 5 or 7 years, I've been really praying about and working about this possibility. Because what happens to me is, and you've probably seen this too, I'll be at the grocery store and it'll be something like I'll be checking out and I'll notice the girl checking me out and I'm looking at them and going, yeah, Susan, is that you? And the answer is, yeah, it is Susan. And Susan has a butch shaved head and green hair and nose rings that bop her on the chin every time she utters one word, and some rainbow lapel pin. And I'm thinking, what in the world happened to her? And then I think back and I go, I know what happened to her. She took 3 dual enrollment classes in high school and then just went woke. And I've seen this so many times with friends, kids I used to work with, people I know. I mean, it's sweet. In fact, in our area, we have teachers that basically brag at the local community college. They'll say, you put your Christian homeschool kid in our classes, 1 semester later, we'll get them. Don't worry. And the parents go, okay, well, we're just going to hope everything goes okay. And to me, I mean, it's like, dual enrollment's great, but if it costs your kid, their soul, I mean, you just can't. I'd go work at, I'd go dig ditches on the weekends, paying for classes before I just take something free, because the content's everything. And that is such a big deal. But anyway, years ago, the state I live in, it's North Carolina. So we have anywhere from 200,000 to 400,000 homeschoolers. There's more homeschoolers than there are private schools. And I was in a meeting about 8 or 10 years ago with a couple of superintendents in our local school district. And they were trying to get I was the president of a homeschool organization. And they were sitting down and saying, we want to offer free classes for your kids and get them, some free classes and this and that. And I went, okay, well, you're saying 2 classes each, right? Oh, yeah. I said, doesn't that make them automatically by law public school kids? And they were like, well, I don't know. They were just flat out lying to us. Because they're losing in our state about $10,000 per kid. So that's anywhere from $2 to $4 billion per year. And our state decided to fight back the homeschoolers by offering free dual enrollment. And they're getting a lot of high schoolers. So, but we're seeing the results. The kids are just not ready to defend 26 other kids in a class. Every single one of them, except for 1 or 2 that they never raise their hands, are woked out. And the professor, they're very aggressive and have numerous conversations with kids I've worked with. And one of them I'll tell you about. I had a girl who was taking anatomy and a psychology class, 2 classes, dual enrollment. And she came to me and said, look at this, what I have to do. They're making us to get credit and to pass the class, we have to go watch this lesbian themed play. If we don't watch it, we don't pass the class, or we get, 2 grades down or whatever it was. I forgot what she said. And I said to her, I said, well, what do you expect from a psychology class? It's a secular class. And she said, oh, no, that's my anatomy class. So it's like my mind reels with sarcastic replies. But they're really they're going for the kids. And we see this all over society, how they're really going for kids, young, and with different things. To me, dual enrollment is just another way of doing it. But I'm trying to fight back the best way I can. So.
It's really good. And, you mentioned so the in-person community colleges, in my area, homeschoolers, right, they can get, free classes, no problem. And so a lot of the homeschoolers are all about that. But I met one of the women who teaches, and, she has, very woke mentality and has, concerts up on her mountain that are, very similar to Woodstock, that are not something I would want my kids to be a part of. Right. And so, once I realized that, I said, okay, we're not going that route. We're not going to the community college. So I looked for online options. But see, the problem with the online options is they're constantly, if they're using these online programs, they can be constantly updated. So the textbooks from 10 years ago, might not have had the LGBTQ or Black Lives Matter or anything, but now they do. And I wasn't going to mention these, but since you brought them up, that is what I was seeing in this Christian college, because they were using content that was from a non-Christian source, all of a sudden they're starting to capitalize, words that were never capitalized before to promote, certain, agendas.
Yeah.
And my son got docked because he wouldn't capitalize a letter that had to do with BLM. And so, but he refused to do it. Good for him, right?
Yeah. Nice small victories, I guess,
But yeah, so it was just interesting, seeing the LGBTQ in that. It was a Christian college, and my husband was, he wrote them, and they said, well, this is just, I guess they didn't realize that was there, maybe because it can constantly be updated, just like, any online program. So as the times continue to get more woke, you just don't know what your children are going to
Sure.
be
They have to be really
learning,
vigilant.
coming.
Well,
Yeah.
the administrators have to be vigilant, especially Christian colleges. And I've been to many Christian homeschool conventions myself, and I looked at some of the colleges that are, talking about dual enrollment, and I looked up their curriculum, and I went, ugh, no, no, ooh, double no. Yeah, some of them, what they're doing is they're just buying like a packaged class, and they're saying, oh look, we're offering classes. Oh look, we put a Bible verse at the beginning of the, on the Canvas LMS system. Look at there, hey, but that doesn't mean it's a Christian class. And that's where I'm trying to be different and trying to, not only just go, you can take my, dual enrollment classes and avoid the bad, but I'm also trying to pump in the good as well, just a good worldview to kind of prepare them for stuff. So to me, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal because it's hard to find. I was at a homeschool conference a while back, and I was looking, and I was going to the different schools, and they were saying, well, we might use, secular content, but like you said, then we'll, have the child think, about how they can relate it to scripture, so we bring that element into it. But I kept asking, no, I want Christian content. It's available. We're homeschooling our children. I homeschool from preschool through 12th grade. I'm giving them this Christian content. I want them, why can't I find Christian content in the college level? I mean, it has to be there somewhere.
Yeah, and a lot, the problem that's out there with Christian families, especially, is, and I talk to these representatives at the homeschool conventions and people I call, and we're homeschool families. A lot of us are one income families because the mom homeschooled, and we have more kids than usual. So I've had discussions with Christian colleges, and they're like, hey, we have a special, $5,000 homeschool scholarship for homeschool kids. I'm like, okay, how much is it per year? 50,000. I mean, which is like, okay, I can get a nickel off a meat coat. That's nice, but it doesn't really help me a whole lot. But anyway, a lot of Christian colleges are very expensive, and it is tough to find dual enrollment credits that are taught specifically through a Christian worldview. And you've probably seen this too, but I've had so many conversations with parents. I've been sitting at a Chick-fil-A, a dozen times with there'd be a student just shaking with anger, having to take, some class, and it was at some university, and the reading material is so obscene. Or there'd be a girl crying because she's had, they said you have to watch, let's see, what is that? Silence of the Lambs. About some psycho killer, movie, to get credit for psychology. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And it's, this stuff it's out there. And I have conversations with parents all the time. And it's basically, I ask them, well, you would never put your kid into XYZ high school, would you? Like, no, it's terrible stuff. And I go, well, why are you putting him in the local community college? Oh, well, it's college credit. Yeah, but so what? It's terrible content, 10 times worse than it was when we were their age. And, it's a lot worse than high school. But they bow to the God of credits. But I'm trying to, again, provide some alternative or whatever. And I do 10 different classes, general education classes. So those are basically the stinkers, the ones they try to woke up your kids with, the worst, the English and the history.
Right.
America's all terrible, I had a kid show me an AP book. He was taking AP world history. He was in one of my co-op classes, and he said, look at this. And there was like 15 pages about how wonderful Islam was, what a boon it was to humanity. And then there was like 8 pages about how Christianity, hurt the world, and it was horrible and this kind of thing. So I was like, you know what? When I get these in, Lord willing, which he has graciously allowed me to do, I'm going to put the content much better than this kind of stuff. So, and I help the kids a lot too. We do a lot of projects and things like that. And there's a lot of group activities, and we have fun as much as we can as well.
So your model is in person, and now you're opening it up online. How does that work? Do you have it? Is it live, and this online students can come join you live, or you have pre-recorded videos? How does that work?
Well, it's live. Yeah, we meet 90 minutes once a week. So I get them in there. It's called, well, it's an alternative to Zoom called Jitsi. And it's less invasive, I find, than Zoom is, that kind of thing. But, we meet 90 minutes once a week. It's either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, depending on what class set. And, we talk about stuff. Let's say it's week 20. We'll talk about all the readings and the projects and things we read about week 19. And then the kids, I'll put them into groups, little breakout rooms of 3 or 4. And they talk about, literature or history, whatever we've done. And we come back and, I do some PowerPoint, and I'm real big on helping them because the university I work with requires a project that they do to make it for college credit. And I really work on helping the kids with their writing. I find that's a really important thing these days, is to do a lot of editing. Sometimes I'll make little videos to help the kids with their writing, but give them a lot of input, because the projects are writing projects. But I stick them in the assignments I blend them in nicely. I stick in the poison in small amounts so they don't taste it. It's over with. All of a sudden they go, oh, there was 3 more credits. So it went really well last year. I had a lot of kids, in the class and online, anywhere, like I said, from Las Vegas to Orlando, and the in-person kids are great as well. But it's been nice. The classes are basically, it's an English and a history is the setup. I mash them together in one set. So there's one of the sets is civics for one semester and economics for another semester. That's the history. And then English that has classic literature and grammar, vocabulary, and that kind of thing. The other set is American government for a whole year and American literature for the whole year. And I wrote that book just because I felt like there needed to be a good Christian worldview. And in fact, I found out, I didn't even know this, that a couple of groups and dual enrollment setups were using my American government book as their textbook. I wasn't even aware of it. Yeah, I didn't know. I had a guy call me and ask me questions about it. So I was like, why are you calling me? How did you find out about this? Anyway, but there are 4 total sets, and 2 of the sets they earn 6 credits, and 2 of the sets they earn 9. So that's a total of 30. We just get 1 year out of the way.
Okay, so that's how you look at it. You get 30. Yeah. You're saying you get 30 credits with all your courses.
That's correct.
And that's in 1 year.
That's over the high school career.
Over high school. Okay. Yeah.
If they want to come to me for, now I have some really motivated, and I like to grind it out, kids who have done more than 1 set in a year.
Okay.
And they're welcome to do that. So if you got a junior and senior who's really motivated to earn some credits, you can do it. Now I've actually had kids too as well. The university I work with makes their summer classes available too. So these are 6-week summer classes. They can earn three more credits, and it's just $300 per class. So it's not free, but Christian universities and homeschool co-op directors like me, we can't compete against free. The state has all the, they've got all the guns and the taxation methods at their disposal. So, but when they do it, they control the content, and it's the same reason why you wouldn't go to a public school or high school. But it's just, it can be potentially, you and I have both seen people that their families have been affected by this. It's just, it's destroying these kids. Before and after pictures are just too horrible to think about. But anyway, just to provide some kind of alternative. So.
Yeah, and the way you can fight against free is by educating people that it isn't free, that you really are selling. It's a trade-off that's it's just not worth it. And I think a lot of homeschoolers understand that, because they could, and this is how I usually approach families. And I'm like, public school could have been free.
I know.
I'm not doing public school, so why would I do this? This is silly.
Right. And I think I mentioned before, like, I'll have the conversation. I go, you wouldn't put your kid in a local high school, would you? They go, oh no, that's to be stupid, be terrible. I'm like, so you're going to put them in the local community college? The professors, the stuff they read, that's what I'm talking about. I've run into, I've actually sat there at restaurants where, there'd be a young lady just crying, just sobbing because of the stuff that they made her read. Aww. That was so offensive, and the mom's crying too, and we're going, oh, if we had only known. I'm thinking, just go look at a curriculum, ask them for the reading list, and then ask for the, then look up the stuff yourself. So it's beyond belief what they're trying to put these kids through. And like you mentioned before, there's so much good stuff out there. I mean, there's literally 1,000 great novels and short stories. You could never finish reading it at these literature classes, but they deliberately choose this stuff that's like 2010 or after, because it's their worldview and their, it's what they want to do to these kids. So kind of sick if you think about it, but
yeah, that's true.
We can't avoid it.
So and we have to be, adamant and fight against it, and, just be determined to get what's really quality for our kids.
Okay.
So you did that with this content that you created. I'm so curious about the literature. Can you maybe share a few examples of some works that you include in your literature course?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of short stories, and I've got basically sets from 7th grade through 12th grade. The 9th through 12th ones I use in my co-op classes. We go through the American literature. We have I do things like there's Booker T. Washington's Up From Slavery. We do a novel called Magnus and Emerson's. There's all kinds of essays and poems and short stories and speeches and letters and things like that. And a lot of it is just, a lot of it reflects, America, but it reflects really Christian worldviews of early through, late America. And, these are a lot. I mean, I go through, and I've actually, it took me years to do this. What I kept doing in my homeschool co-op is I kept dragging around these tubs of books, like these, those big old black ones with a lid you can get at, Office Depot. I was dragging those around, getting a hernia basically every 2 weeks, and then I just decided, what, I'm going to put these all together and we're going to do different stuff. So that's what I'm doing. I published on my own, and, they're all set up for homeschoolers. It's like a 30-week schedule, 4 days a week. And there's British literature, world literature, classic literature, and American literature. I mentioned American literature, but the British literature has all kinds of things that short stories and essays and things like that. I guarantee you people have never even heard of. Now, I read probably 10,000, bad pieces of literature before I lit on these. But in the classic, it's made up of mysteries, it's science fiction, short stories, that kind of thing. And the world literature, again, has so many different things. We have a neat book it's just called Let Me Die in Ireland. It's like a story of Patrick. It's based on his journals. Wow. And, the different things like that set in different areas. And I have, again, found all kinds of short stories and essays and speeches from I think there's about 20 nations around the world that we've found these. I like humor, so every set that I have has funny stuff in it, and from 7th grade up to the 12th grade. And, there's just so much good stuff out there. But every time I think about it, I think, you and I, like you, Heather, you spend so much time looking up good stuff for your kids, and people who are listening do the same thing. Like, what's good out there? Not just, it's classic, or, it's, what everybody thinks is, we should read or whatever. I think we have a little bit higher standards than the world does. We should, so that's what I try to keep in mind with all these sets. So.
That's really good. So I know that there's a question that those will be watching this and are watching this might have. When you finish with your program, so you were saying you knock out a year. I'm trying to remember. So you won't get an associate's, but you will have credits if you want to get a degree at a college after the child graduates. Correct. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's right. It's basically, it's 30 hours, which is equivalent of a year. One question I get a lot is, will these transfer? And which is, great. And I have actually literally called, I don't know how many Christian colleges, Christian universities, secular community colleges, and every single person so far has said, "Oh yeah, we'll take them all." They're general education classes. It's British literature, world history, American government. It's not like it's Norwegian pottery 2, or what I'm saying, or something like that, or intermediate volleyball or whatever. These are, they're, if nothing else, they're electives that you can do. And I know a lot of kids that I've worked with, they've gone to something like, they'll go to the community college and get an associate's in, let's say, welding. And they go, okay, that's, either 15 or 30 or 24 credits in that, field. So that knocks out a lot of their stuff. And there's only a couple more. Usually, I think like algebra, even things like chemistry can be a lot less offensive. Although when I was teaching public school, that 1 year of high school math, I did get a little teaching in among the zookeeping and throwing students out of class and stuff. But, there was the books back in 2000, 23 years ago, were so political. Even math, you're thinking, how can math be political? Well, it absolutely can. So I think other classes like that you could get more stuff at a community college. And I'm actually working right now on putting together an associate's degree program completely online and working with
great.
Working
it's
with
so
that.
needed.
It's in the works. I know. To me, that is a really giant deal. If nothing else, just so kids can, if they're not sure, just work on this online. Get it done. They can work part-time. They can pray about their futures and things like that. And then if they want to go to college, then great. If they don't, then let's say some job requires an associate's, boom, they got it. So there you go.
I think that's wonderful. I think that's so important. And I think homeschoolers will be all over that for sure.
I hope so. Yeah. doing my little part as much as I can as one guy. So it's been a lot of fun. I love working with high schoolers. They're, just like you can talk to them. They're very engaged. Most of them are toilet trained, a lot better to, at least the ones I've worked with. So I can't vouch for all of those unsocialized homes. Anyway, yeah, it's fun. Have a good time with it.
So before we sign off, I was wondering if you could give parents one piece of advice for their students, what would that be?
I would say don't give up homeschooling in high school. Just stick with it. Worldview, even more now than ever in this country, is so important. It's not just avoiding the bad, but using the years of high school to really pump that worldview into them. Spend time with your high schoolers. We all know homeschooling really is just parenting, right? It's just an extension of that. And one of the things I did with my kids, my own personal kids, the ones I own outright. That's one of the few things I own outright. But it was to say, okay, you're in high school, so now it's up to you. I want you to direct your own learning. If I took them to the like a homeschool convention, we would let them. You pick out a science project. Or your science curriculum. You do it since you'll be using it. And they did that kind of thing. You take control of your stuff. We'll help you, of course. But it's time to go. 100 years ago, you might be working on a farm 80 hours a week. So the least we can do now is get you working by yourself and directing yourself. But that content to me is so important, the Christian content. And a lot of parents I know, unfortunately, Christian parents, when kids are in their 20s, I have conversations every week with parents. I had so many conversations with people in tears at this last homeschool convention I was at. One lady had a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old, and she said, we can't even talk anymore. We can't even have Thanksgiving. All we get told is we're just capitalist pigs and homophobes and this kind of thing. Wow. And I said, what happened? She said, 2 words, dual enrollment. And, the content is so important in high school to continue that and continue that Christian worldview. There are opportunities. We just have to dig for them. And I'm trying to help colleagues and friends and other homeschoolers. I'm trying to do the digging and provide some alternatives. So, my prayer is out there for all those parents of high schoolers. It's definitely worth it. We have 5, like I said, kids in their 20s now, and they are our absolute best friends. We have the best time together. It is absolutely so worth it, more than anything you could possibly imagine. So we're so thankful for that. But yeah.
That's wonderful. Yeah. As of a week ago, I have 3 teenagers in the home, and I realized, this is the time, to have conversations with them. And we want to, as parents, we want to be the ones that are having those conversations, and not, they're eager and they're hungry and they're looking. So why give them this content when, you don't know, sometimes you don't know what's going on in their heads, and they're seeking. So we want to direct them in the right places, and like you said, the right curriculum. And and for those watching, if anyone are watching and you have the experience that Scott's been sharing, where maybe your child has gone off in the wrong direction because of this, there is always hope. God can absolutely, we train them up in the way they should go, and when they're old, they will not depart from it. So we'll be praying along with you. But like I always say to in any realm of Christianity, you want to, if you can, start right in the beginning. God's grace is there, to bring him back, but let's do it right in the beginning. And I think that by offering Christian college, credit classes is an incredible opportunity. And thank you so much for what you're doing, Scott. I appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next time, another Homeschool Live.